ended up going into sales. So, in that capacity, I was an educational sales consultant, sold special education materials as well as materials for the prison system, so early literacy programs. Um, while I was doing that, it became quite apparent to me that that wasn't something I was particularly good at and probably something I wouldn't do for the rest of my life. And I began doing some PRN speech therapy work for NovaCare. And suddenly one day, as I'm going into the building, I noticed that there's a posting for a district manager. And I inquired a little bit about that, but told them I really didn't think I was qualified. Uh, they talked with me a little bit more and said, well, you are qualified. You manage your own schedule. You go from place to place. You have some financial background, and we'd like for you to interview. And from there, I went from being the PRN speech therapist on Sunday to the district manager on Monday morning. Since that time, I've worked with several of the larger therapy companies, so NovaCare, Aegis, Rehab Care, Genesis, um, as well as Harborside Healthcare. And I've been in a number of different roles. So, multi state clinical and operational manager, I've done multidisciplinary clinical specialist, and currently do more denials management, so chart reviews and dealing with Medicare or managed care companies to be sure that claims get paid and that money isn't taken back from our customers. If you're a manager right now, or you're thinking about being a manager, you're a future manager maybe, I'm hoping that as we talk this evening, you'll be able to move forward with confidence if you're already a manager. You'll be able to identify the challenges ahead if you're interested in being a manager. You'll begin to identify ways that you can take your career to the next level, if that's something of interest to you, and even begin to explore the possibilities when it comes to a new career outside of the therapy world. And I think that's where many therapists struggle is how do I take these skills in this position and move them into another arena? To be effective, there are three skills you absolutely must master. You have to effectively manage change on a day to day basis, more so now than ever. You have to ensure great communication with everyone, including the people that make it very difficult for you. And you have to develop a team that has respect for you and, almost more importantly, respect for each other. You're probably thinking to yourself right now, I could never master all of that. Every change I try to make, I hear, but we've always done it this way. Or I might be able to communicate better with some people, but there are some people that will always be difficult to deal with, and nothing's going to change that. You may also be thinking, if you're lucky, my team's already so good, I don't think they need any improvement. Or my team's kind of a mess, and I don't think anything is going to change that no matter what I do. But, so if I can do it, how am I going to do it? Well, this evening I want you to get to thinking about considering new approaches to problems that you've had in the past, looking at doing things that you've never done before. You've never tried them before, you have no experience in them, and you also have to be able to give yourself permission to fail multiple times. It's very interesting climate right now, and everything is not as easy as it once was. Jobs are becoming more difficult. You see a lot of postings on Facebook now that PRN people with steady PRN income and jobs are now having to look really hard to find something. So the likelihood that you'll try something and fail's improved a little bit, but that's okay. We want to feel comfortable with that, knowing that we failed, figuring out what we did wrong, and going back and trying it again. You really have to be able to move out of your comfort zone into what I call marvelous manager land. So, a lot of therapists say, I would never want to be the director of rehab. I don't know how anybody does that. I like what I do right here. I wouldn't want everybody mad at me. I wouldn't want to have to worry about schedules. I don't want to do any of that. The fact that you're on the call tonight tells me you're either already there or you're strongly considering moving into that. And if that's the case, I want you to walk away and feel like you are residing in marvelous manager land. Things have changed a lot since I first started working in the field, especially in terms of support. I think now more than ever, it's really important to have a mentor. When I first took the position with NovaCare, that was in 1990. And at that point in time, the money flowed freely in healthcare. There was a lot of money invested in training me, teaching me the soft skills of communication, how to get along with other people, how to evaluate the effectiveness of other disciplines. There was just a lot of training. And one thing that really stood out in my mind that I think will be helpful to all of you or put things in perspective for you is we had 1 week where we were assigned to a group of people. We were out of town at a conference. You were to remain with your group of people at all time until you went to bed in the evening. So you got up, got ready, ate breakfast with them, went to meetings, ate lunch with them, went to more meetings, had dinner with them, socialized with them in the evening, and then turned in for the night. On Friday that week, we were all pulled into the room with our group, and we were told to write 10 positive words about each person and 10 negative words about each person. And I remember very clearly that as they went around and were asking people about adjectives to describe me, one of the people said, I think she's very assertive. And she was asked, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Oh, it's a good thing. I'm glad she's assertive. She lets me feel comfortable. I know what I need to do. I've just felt great all week long being around her. Somebody else also said I was assertive, but when they were asked, is it a good thing or a bad thing? They said it was a bad thing. She's too assertive. She's pushy. I already know that stuff. I've been doing it as long as she has, maybe even a little longer. And it really, really struck me. And I think it's something we need to think about that we kind of are who we are. And under stress, we tend to be more of who we are, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And it helps to put in perspective and understand that how we are impacts other people and it impacts them differently depending on how they are. And that's one thing that I really got from that coursework. And it's something that I think will be of benefit to you as we continue this evening. Just some of those things to think about that make you a better leader. Companies, again, they used to do leadership training for their managers. Now it's all about maneuvering the numbers. At first, we were doing PPS and we're counting minutes and counting days. Now we're moving into PDPM and we're figuring out how can we do groups and concurrent and how can we minimize our costs for therapy and still deliver what we delivered. It's really hard to find a good mentor at work because what happens is your mentor who works for the same company you do can't always be honest with you about what they see going on. So I've always felt good about having CFYs and being their supervisor when they worked for one company and I worked for another because that allowed me to be very brutally honest about what I saw with their company, things that maybe shouldn't be done a certain way or things that they were missing, and allow me to really freely provide feedback without fear of losing my job. You need somebody who's not going to sugarcoat the facts. I think I'm pretty much of a straight shooter. I don't sugarcoat the facts, but I do understand why someone's maybe having a problem. So I feel like I'm empathetic from that standpoint, but I am pretty honest when I see something not working well. And I think one of the other things from having a mentor is everyone needs to learn how to develop your strengths and make up for your weaknesses or those missed opportunities that you have because you can't see how to do things differently. My question for you this evening is your BP getting worse? And by BP, I don't mean blood pressure, although I might. Is your big problem getting worse? You're not alone if your hours are increasing and you feel more and more pressure from all sides. That's what's going on in our industry right now. In 2018, last year, the average turnover in healthcare was 19.9%. When people began to look at that and analyze why, there were four reasons. Number one, poor hiring. In the past, with the industry the way it's been, there was a real strong tendency to go, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's only one OT. She does PRN work for my company and 50 million other companies, but she's all we have. So I'm going to go ahead and hire her. I'm going to use her services even though she's not very timely. Sometimes she doesn't show up. Documentation's not done, or if it is done, it's not very good. So we've all fallen victim to poor hiring practices. And for some of us, you may be in a role that you never wanted to be in to begin with. You're the director of rehab by default because no one else would take it, and you maybe haven't developed your comfort level yet for that position. The next big reason that people leave, poor development. Companies really are not spending the money to develop the soft skills for people. And in many cases, they're not even willing to spend money to develop the clinical skills or allow you the time during the course of your day to pursue clinical education. There's poor succession training. By succession training, I mean there is not a lot of time or energy put into identifying someone who could step into the role if something happened. So for some of you, I'm sure it's 24/7 as the director of rehab. There is no real break. You're kind of always on call, always going to answer the phone, always going to respond to a text, constantly getting emails because there really aren't a lot of people around you that are trained to step into that position if you decided you wanted time off or you didn't want the position at all anymore. And the other, then all these three feed into the last one, which is poor retention. There aren't a lot of attempts to retain people. At the same time that we say it's hard to find someone, once we find them, we kind of take them for granted. We don't worry about whether or not they got enough hours to get benefits. We don't worry about cutting treatment short or scheduling things strangely. We just kind of don't care anymore. And those things are contributing to the average turnover in healthcare at almost 20%. And quite honestly, I know it's much higher with some companies and probably a little lower with others, but this is the national average for last year. So, what can you do differently to manage more effectively with less stress? First thing we talked about is being able to manage change. People are creatures of habit. We don't want anything to change. And if you start bringing up what's going to change, if I'm sitting listening to you, I just begin to tick off all the things I think I'm going to lose because of the change. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do individual therapy anymore. It's all going to be groups. Oh my gosh, somebody's